So we had to sort of have to make sort of like a breakthrough on this situation. And finally we thought, yeah, we've got to give this guy a hand here. But so we just started passing the pieces around. And
what did you notice about, no, it wasn't your square. Who was it on your team that had a square that was not correct?
Where is he?
Because the person who's trying to make this square had no chance, because there was, in fact, there was 2 people on your team that had incorrect squares.
Yeah. Where is he? I lost him. Yeah,
oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Is that your name?
Yeah.
Jamie. Jamie's sitting over here with an incorrect square. And everyone's going on, and it's like...
It was getting more and more frustrating, and then we finally...
What's that? Trust me, there are incorrect squares. There's at least 6 ways to make squares that mean it won't work in that game. That's the way the game's set up. In fact, some of you are even given an envelope with an incorrect square to see if you will pass. Because what's the lesson in that? How many of you have ever hit budget in your sales and stopped because you've got budget even though the team didn't? Have you ever done that? You know, you take a look at it, it's a team game. So very important. Thanks for those lessons. Give them a hand. Back, Mike.
Hi, I'm Angie. I noticed with my pieces, pretty soon I actually got a square, but once that happened I realised I had no communication left at all. And being a high I, that was quite hard. So I noticed one of the other guys, he seemed to be quite in control, because anytime someone handed him a piece, he'd hand it back or hand it quite strongly to somebody else. And I thought, this is the way to do it. So I started handing my pieces to him. No, you're right, okay, cool. So I sort of was following...
Who was that?
This lovely gentleman over here. But no, it was definitely helpful, because I hit a stalemate. I just thought, no, I don't know if I'm right. There are plenty other ways, and I wanted to help, but was not in a position if my square was
that natural high I tendency. Let me help everybody.
Yeah. But I did, and then it worked out.
Excellent. Give them a hand.
Yeah, I think our team was pretty much of what's already been said. Like, we started out to individually get our square together. And you kept going on about communication and blah, 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 blah. And we didn't get it because we were all just trying to get our square together. But then a couple of people got their squares and well, I was one that didn't, and another one, and it's like, then we finally realised that we have to really start working as a team, just not as individuals.
Have you noticed how quick it came out the moment you started passing? Did you notice that? As soon as you started actually passing, all of a sudden it just happened. So very good. Give them a hand. Back, Mike.
Yeah, Pilar. I noticed our team before we started had it wasn't a totally, I can't even explain it right now. It was an energy that wasn't a competitive energy. So therefore, as soon as we started the game, everyone, like, even though someone got their square together and they saw that somebody else could do something better with the pieces, they passed it on, and that was really interesting, because I'd like to find out, what the team dynamics as far as the disc is concerned, because everyone was happy to give up their pieces in order to get things working. And I know I was the last one to put together, even though it was there right in front of me, staring at me, and then I turned it over and went, oh, here I am, because they had all their squares and I had my square, but I hadn't put it together.
How do you feel when you're the only one that doesn't have your square done?
Well, it was interesting, because I thought, oh, God, I'm an engineer and I know about shapes because I'm an artist and blah, and then I just went, oh, hang on.
Oh, you went into the I know land and therefore stopped learning. Excellent. Give her a hand.
Yeah. Oh, just one more thing, because when I went around and I was watching other people, I realised that there was many people that were unwilling to break things in order to move on. And it's sometimes like I've seen that, once something's put together and built up and you think, well, that's it. Very few people are reluctant to actually break it all apart in order to rebuild bigger and better.
Absolutely. How many of you have ever fallen victim to that in your normal life, where you're unwilling to change something in order for it to get better? How many of you have ever done that before? It's a very good lesson, thank you. Chris, Chris, how many pieces did you have in front of you down
I had an
this neck
absolute
of the woods?
shitload of them at one stage. And being an age 2, what really annoyed me about that game was you kept saying 10 minutes like that, and I'm thinking, hang on, who can I pay to do this? So,
The high D approach. I'm going to try and do it all myself.
yeah, it all
If
started.
all else fails, I'm going to give it to some other bugger.
Yeah, exactly. And
See, now, here's a question for you though, Chris. In the business world, because when I first ever played this game, I got all of the pieces, not just most of them. I had all the pieces. And I made a square and then I gave it to you. Because I knew what I was doing. How hard do you think I worked at that point in time in my life? Very hard. I worked long hours. I did everything for everybody. I was always trying to make everyone square for them. And at some point I had to take the lesson. All I really need to do is communicate, and then others can get their own squares done themselves.
Yeah, there was 2 other things. First of all, this dreadful feeling of inadequacy. You're sitting there with all these things and you're seeing someone with squares and you're sitting there with nothing. You're thinking, hey, hang on, how dumb am I? What's going on here? And the other thing was the body language when someone else had a square very early on in the game before we started working as a team. The body language was, you know, you could sense it, you know, what's this idiot doing? Can't he get a square together? And I'm sitting there going, if this guy keeps doing this, I'm going to... So it was very frustrating from this point of view. It was this sort of a groan and this... So that was a bit frustrating.
So
I would
let
have
me
sacked
ask you
him, by
this
the way.
question
But anyway.
around teams then, as a group. When you're in a team, if people stop communicating, what happens to other members of the team's levels of anxiety? They go up. As soon as communication stops, anxiety builds. Self-doubt builds. In relationships, as soon as communication stops. Give that team a hand, wonderful lessons. Because by the way, when he had the pieces, how many people were playing on that team? One. That's why the leaders of most companies work so hard. Back Mike.
Alison, it was interesting, our team, like it certainly mirrors everything that's been talked about in that we all got in and did our own little piece, and then it became apparent, you know, the possessiveness and the microscopic thing. Yes, I've done mine, and when are you going to get your shit together? And then it became apparent, oh, actually, okay, I'll give you that piece. And then several, you know, 3 or 4 of the people got their squares together, and it's sort of like, well, yes, and then it became apparent that those squares that were already set up had to go through a process of metamorphosis and breaking them up in order to get everyone to work. So no, it was certainly interesting as far as
How
that
many of you
possessiveness.
noticed that one non-communicator can stop a team? Did you all notice that? One person not communicating can kill an entire team's ability to succeed. Not 4 people out of 5, but 1. Thank you. Oh, yeah, you got one more bit?
Actually, yeah, there was one thing that, like, the one piece was quite unique in that it certainly needed to go together. So the guardian of that was sort of like, yes, you can all share your pieces. You give me a piece, you can have it back. Thank you. Which was wise in the long term, but certainly, yeah. So taking that hint without taking it personally.
Excellent. Excellent. Give them a hand. Ah, welcome.
I thought Charles, I thought I'd better say something on behalf of the team that finished towards the end of the pack.
At minute 29, yes.
Yeah. We had a really interesting team. Everybody seemed to communicate really well. Someone would complete a square and they'd wait while everybody else thought about the other pieces they had in front of them. We didn't seem to have any issues between the team members. Our issues were with the pieces on the ground.
It's like, you know, I have issues with the customers, not with other team members.
Yeah. Now, what was really interesting was when all of you started to gather around, the grandstand, started to appear around us, and then we felt rather stressed at that point because we were the last and we couldn't complete. And so I'm sure, speaking on behalf of the rest of the team, my palms were getting sweaty and I felt really quite nervous. But we focused on the pieces and we finally got there. And I'm not quite sure what our lessons were, but we worked really well as a team, as individuals.
Well, there were 2 members of your team that didn't communicate for approximately 80% of the time. And there was only 2 members of your team who played the majority of the game.
Do you agree with that,
Anyone
guys?
watching that team, did you notice that there were several people who just sat there with a square? And for at least 15 minutes of the game, one of them sat there with a not a wrong square, a square that won't help everyone else win the game.
Well, they were helping us think, of course.
A politically incorrect square, okay. But it's a great lesson.
Good lesson.
And the challenge was that the 2 people playing wouldn't pass to anyone but themselves. So there were 2 people that kept doing it, and then they couldn't make the square, so they'd pass it back to the other bloke. "Oh, no, you have it back, I've tried it for 5 minutes, I can't get it, here, you have it." And then eventually someone woke up and started passing. So please take 1 minute, write down what did you learn from that game? What are your learnings from playing that game? So here's what happened in the game, everybody. Everybody, please. Some of you are now saying, bugger. Because that's what happens. How you communicate is truly reflected back to you. So very good lessons for each of us. The way that works, folks, if we break this down into a team, I talk about respect. Self-respect and respect for others. So if you draw a quick chart like the one I've got up on the board, with self-respect down one side and respect for others down the across the bottom. We're talking about styles of work here, how people work with each other. And obviously down the bottom there, we've actually, in the bottom left, we've actually got a low respect for self and a low respect for others. Is that going to be a very good working style, do you think? No. Obviously, where do we want to be? High respect for self and high respect for others. You have to have both. And this is one of the biggest challenges I find with the majority of people is they don't ever get to that point where they're actually working from, well, let's start with the bottom. Very few people work from here, but it's called lose-lose. What's it called? Lose-lose. The technical term for this is called a manipulative aggressive. What a manipulative aggressive could commonly be known as is like a kamikaze pilot. They're the underminer. They're the underground gossiper. They're the person that when you have a team meeting, they walk outside and start telling everyone, gee, wasn't that a load of rubbish? The suicide bomber, absolutely. These are the people that take themselves out and everyone else around them. How many of you have had someone like this on one of your sales teams or something in the past? What's the fastest way to get rid of them? A big gun, you know. Remove them quickly. If you let these people stay in the company, what happens? It'll drag everyone's results down. I still remember one of my clients, it was a team of 30 salespeople. 10 of the 30 were in this category. We actually sacked all bar 6 of their salespeople. So the team went from 30 to 6. We increased sales by 3 times. We put on personal assistants for those 6 to do their paperwork, and those 6 handled all the clients. Totally different way of thinking. See, sometimes more salespeople doesn't mean more sales, it means less because you're willing to keep the underperformers. Talk about raising the bar in a moment. When you have a high respect for self but a low respect for others, what game do you play? Win, lose. When you have a high respect for others but a low respect for self, what game do you play? lose-win. Now, the win-lose people, I call them the hostile aggressives. That's the technical term for them. Hostile aggressives. These are known as the schoolyard bully. These are often the sales managers that won't let anyone else beat their old sales record. How many of you have ever worked for one of those or been one of those, you know? If you've worked for one of them, you know, oh, back in 1985, I sold 100,000 in a month. You'll never do that, though. You know, they get that real hostile, aggressive, schoolyard bully position. And they don't believe anyone else is as good as them. The bottom right, the lose-win, we call them the passives. These are commonly known as the doormats of life. They let people walk all over them. Sometimes you would call them the nice people. You know, they let people get away with stuff. They give up all of their power. They're happy to lose as long as everyone else wins. Where is the biggest training for this? Young girls get trained to do this, unfortunately. Not as much now, but in the past they had. And so it's a generation gone by where women were trained to play this role. Hopefully they'll step out of it. Nowadays, unfortunately, it's flipping the young boys. Young guys in school are happy to lose. They think it's cool to be, you know, the lower end of the knowledge scale. So it's interesting how times change. Where we play win-win, I call this the assertive person. These are the leaders, folks. They don't need to be bullies. They're not going to be pushed around like the doormats, but they are the leaders. They are assertive. They play win-win. That is the ultimate style to play in. Now, to get there, we need to make some other notes. You can add these to that same graph if you like. In living styles, when we take this to personal relationships rather than just looking at it from a point of view of work, that low self-respect and low respect for others is called I'm not okay, you're not okay. What's it called? This is where, well, in life, when people end up in this quadrant, they end up as murderers, alcoholics, suicide victims, drug addicts. They're basically either in jails or dead in most cases. It's a very low percentage of the population that ends up there. They can end up as street bums because they believe they're not okay and the world is not okay as well. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. When people are in the top left, where they have a high self-respect but a low respect for others, they're in the I'm okay, you're not okay quadrant. Just lost colour there. There we go, it's back again. Geez, that was quick. I'm okay, you're not okay. How would this person operate other than being the schoolyard bully? Do you think they would stay in this quadrant? No, they flip-flop. When you're in this quadrant, you have to flip-flop with the other one. This one down here, I'm not okay, you're not, I'm not okay, you're okay. These two people live a coexistence together. A lot of relationships live these two places. One lives in I'm okay, you're not okay, the other one's in I'm not okay, you're okay. And they coexist. Where are most school teachers? I'm okay, you're not okay. Where are most college professors, university professors? I'm okay, you're not okay. Where are most politicians? Most business consultants? Most business managers? Not leaders, but managers. They're in I'm okay, you're not okay. Most psychiatrists and psychologists live in that place. They believe they have to fix their patients. The I'm not okay, you're okay. It's interesting, when a child is born, that is the category they put themselves into. There's been many studies looking at children's psychology. The psychology of children, because they are so inept when they are younger, they have no ability to do anything. What happens is they automatically put themselves into I'm not okay, you're okay. At some point in their life, they move out of that. Now, if as a parent you have really instilled in them that they're not okay and that you as a parent are okay, where will that child rebel to? I'm not okay, you're not okay. They will dislike themselves and they will then blame the parent. They will go into attack mode. They will attack themselves. They will try and commit suicide. They will go into self-mutilation. They will go into eating disorders. Does that make sense? Okay? That is where they move across to. Now, if the parent has just been a normal parent, and by normal parent I mean the age-old way of parenting on the fear-based parenting. Do you all know what I mean by fear-based parenting? You will do it or else. Why will you do it? Because I told you to and I'm the boss. Okay, for anyone wanting to move out of that, by the way, read Dr. John Gray's book, Children Are From Heaven. It is a fantastic book because what he's done is he's combined the 60s and 70s way of parenting called let them do whatever the heck they want, and the 50s and 60s, 50s and early 60s way of parenting called they'll do what they're bloody told, and combined it into a modern way of parenting where they can have both discipline and self-actualization. Okay, very important stuff. It's actually good to read, not just for the kids either. It's good to read